I love when football gods
On a high note, losing 4 straight as they head into Wild Card weekend, facing a matchup with the division rival Ravens in Baltimore. Jeff, I'll start with you on this one. On a high note, losing 4 straight as they head into Wild Card weekend, facing a matchup with the division rival Ravens in Baltimore. Jeff, I'll start with you on this one. What can Russell Wilson do to save his job as a starter?
Yo, this is a crazy question to me. What do you mean? What? He can't catch it. I understand Russell Wilson has limitations, but Russell Wilson is not the reason that the Pittsburgh Steelers are losing games. His number one receiver had 0 yards. He had 1 catch, 0, and I think it was 5 drops. It was not Russell Wilson's fault they can't compete in that game. Russell Wilson has done everything he needs to do to continue to be their starter. They have to build around him. They need more explosive plays in the running game, and that includes backs that are more explosive. They need to have more explosive receivers to help alongside Pickens, and when he's having that kind of day, get somebody else that can help him. There's a lot of areas the Pittsburgh Steelers, and by the way, I'm not saying this last week because they played pretty well on defense last week, but the weeks before, the defense that this team is based on didn't play well. To lay all this on Russell Wilson is ridiculous. He has not done anything to lose the job of starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. I don't understand the question, to be honest with you.
Shannon?
I agree with you, Saturday. I just don't know. Arthur Smith got to do a better job of scheming. You see your left tackle is getting it handed to him Saturday.
Handed.
And you still scat the formation, which means you empty the backfield. You don't slide the protection to him. You don't chip. You don't help. You do nothing. You say, oh well, son, you got to suck it up. You got what? Let me tell you something. Stephen A. Saturday can attest to this. Once that guy gets it going, if you don't help him, he will get killed. Once a defensive guy gets it, I don't care who your left tackle is, who your right tackle is. Once that guy get a sack and he beats him consistently, good night, Irene, if you don't double him, if you don't chip him. And that still might not be enough with the chip. You might need to double him and say, hey, right tackle, you're on your own today because we've got to slide this protection. We've got to help our left tackle.
Preach.
They didn't do that. And Hendrickson, again, won the sack title, 3.5 sacks in that ball game there. Saturday, you're absolutely right. We cannot place all this at the feet of Russell Wilson. When he has a guy that's supposed to be a receiver that turned into a retriever, that meant he picked the ball up and handed it to the official. That's not your job description, George Pickens. Your job is to catch the football. You see, I love when football gods punish negative behavior, because all he do is beat and moan and complain about targets. Oh, he pout, he grope. He quit on a play against Kansas City, and it caused Russ to throw an interception, and they blame Russ, not knowing that he gave up on cover 2. Justin Reed saw that he was no threat down the deep rail and snuck back in and got a pick.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin need to do something about it. He need to get on behavior, Stephen A., because I see it too much from the receiver position. We saw it with George Pickens. We saw it with Deontay Johnson, A.B., Claypool. There's a reoccurring theme that Mike McCarthy, you're either coaching this or you're condoning this. But we're not going to put this at the feet of Russell Wilson today. Nope. Not today.
We can't put it at the feet of Russell Wilson today based on what y'all are saying, because I don't disagree with a single syllable that y'all uttered. But this is why, even though we appreciate the brilliance of your football knowledge, it helps to have a scribe as a part of the mix, so I can bring it home to the layman out there for y'all, okay? Nobody is saying that Russell Wilson is to blame. You're asking the question because what you're asking is he good enough to overcome the maladies that exist around the franchise? You know, when we look at Lamar Jackson, even though we need to see more from him in the postseason, he's so electrifying that there's a lot he could cover up in terms of what Baltimore was lacking throughout the years. We saw what Patrick Mahomes has done with the absence of Tyreek Hill. We know they ain't had no receiver in Kansas City that's equitable to Tyreek Hill. Not in your life. But they're the reigning 2-time back-to-back champions. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes can make up for some things. We saw Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis leave Buffalo. Well, how they looking with Josh Allen as their quarterback? That's all we're asking. When you're asking the question about Russell Wilson, that's where you're coming from, Jeff Saturday. You're looking at it from the standpoint, not blaming him because of what you pointed out, both of you pointed out about, you know, what Pickens is lacking, AB, and all of these other guys. Here's where it gets interesting, and I'll throw this back to y'all. Steelers, for some reason, historically have found all-world receivers from a talent perspective. Head cases, no doubt. So my point to you, Jeff Saturday, question, I would throw this to you this way. Do you throw the wide receivers coach out of the building, right, and get somebody else that is going to make sure to avoid having head cases, but that man was elite at finding the talent at the position? Or do you pick the talent and deal with the head cases? Because ultimately, that's the decision that the Steelers are going to have to make, because Mike Tomlin, no matter how much he has tried to deal with it and ultimately replaced guys, no matter what, you still find guys at these positions that are relatively problematic inside and outside the locker room.
I would say it this way. There's a whole lot more wide receivers out there that you could put on the field that'll help your team win than quarterbacks like you're talking about. You name 3 guys who are dudes, right? Who are dudes. There ain't many. God didn't create many Lamar Jacksons. God didn't create many Josh Allens, right?
But I was just using it to crystallize your question, Jeff. I was just using it to crystallize your question. In other words, I was saying we're not saying that Russell Wilson is bad. We're just saying that's what you need. That's all I'm saying.
You. But in my opinion, Russell Wilson can carry your team to where you want them to go if you build the guys around him that do compete, that do fight, that do challenge week in and week out. He can be that guy. Again, they're limited in the backfield. They're limited at wide receiver. And this is not a knock on Najee Harris or Warren. These guys are good, but they're not Bijan Robert. They're not the difference makers that you're talking about, especially at the wide receiver. And as good as Pickens is, he still hasn't shown you that he's consistent. And so you have to have some consistency at that position to allow your quarterback to look good. And Shannon, your point about tackles and about players. I watched Jonathan Ogden, who may be one of the greatest left tackles of all time. I watched Dwight Freeney hunt on that dude. And let me tell you, I don't care how good you are, to your point, once your head gets spinning and you're thinking, I mean, I can't tell you how many offensive linemen I've heard come to the sideline. I can't block them. And I'm churching it up as nice as I can say it. But they're like, somebody help me. Slide my way, send protection my way, chip my way. Do something, because when you just go, hey, be better, that does not work. It's no different than a receiver beating on a DB or vice versa. At some point, you got to throw some help a guy's way. They did not do a good job of that.
To answer your question, Stephen, you remember saying that you had a Patrick Mahomes. When Patrick Mahomes' receiver was dropping all those balls, how did Patrick Mahomes look?
Yeah.
He didn't look great, but he found a way.
No, they lost 5. What did they lose? 5 games, 6 games last year. What about when Patrick Mahomes was in the Super Bowl and he didn't have no line to protect him, like Russell Wilson had the other night? Remember Tom Brady in Super Bowl against the Giants when they hunted?
Yeah.
They bam on you enough. I've been around the game too long, Stephen A. When them guys start hunting, I don't care who the quarterback is, he's going to get gun shy.
Yep.
And when he gets gun shy, that's all I need. That's all I need.
All right, Saturday night.
Stephen A., you said, should we get another, one more thing, Molly. Stephen A. said, should we get a receiver coach? No. What you need to do is that when they exhibited negative behavior, I don't care if they had 150 yards. You punish negative behavior. Because what you do with a child, if a child misbehaves, my grandpa used to always tell my grandmother, you never reward negative behavior. If that child show out, you don't get him ice cream, you don't get him a toy. You address it and let them know that's not the behavior that we're going to have.
Yep.
Absolutely. Pittsburgh at Baltimore, that's Saturday, and the Ravens are favored by 10.
Oh,
Yep.
10.
10, double digits.
Chào tất cả các bạn đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình.